My name is Miller. I've been a corrections officer at Blackwood Penitentiary for 12 years. You see a lot of things in a place like this. You see fights, you see riots, you see guys lose their minds just from staring at the same four walls for a decade. You learn to shut it off. You learn to stop asking questions. You just do your 8 hours and you go home. But there is one night back in November of 2009 that I still can't explain. I was working the graveyard shift in Block D. That's the segregation unit down in the basement. We call it the tomb. It's the oldest part of the prison. No windows, no natural light, just wet concrete and rusted steel that smells permanently like mold and industrial bleach. Once you go down there, the rest of the world just disappears. That night, the block was supposed to be dead, literally. Half the wing was closed for renovations, so the cells were stripped bare. We only had 6 inmates down there in total, locked up in the first 6 cells. The rest of the tier, cells 7 through 40, were empty. At 0300 hours, 3 a.m., I started my count. It's routine. Even if you know the cells are empty, you have to walk the tier. You have to check the locks. You have to physically look inside. It's protocol. I grabbed my heavy mag light and stepped out of the bubble. It was quiet. Too quiet. Usually in seg, you hear guys yelling or praying or banging on the doors. But tonight, nothing. Just the buzzing of those old fluorescent lights. I walked past the first 6 cells. Cell 1, occupied. Cell 2, occupied. I checked all 6 inmates. They were sleeping. Then I reached the dead zone, cells 7 through 40, the empty ones. I kept walking, shining my light into the bars. Empty, empty, empty. I was moving on autopilot, thinking about coffee, thinking about my warm bed at home. And then I hit cell 13. I stopped. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness of the cell. It should have hit the back wall. It should have shown a bare metal bunk and a toilet. But the light, it didn't hit the wall. It hit something else. There was someone sitting on the bunk. A man. He was facing away from me, hunched over, his head in his hands. He was wearing the standard issue grays, the old uniforms we stopped using in the 90s. My first thought wasn't ghost. My first thought was, we have an escapee hiding in here. My hand went to my baton immediately. I unsnapped the holster. "Inmate," I barked. My voice echoed way too loud in the silence. "Stand up, face the bars, now." He didn't move. He didn't even flinch. He just sat there, rocking slightly back and forth. I grabbed my radio. "Control, this is Miller in D block. I've got an unauthorized inmate in cell 13. I need backup down here, now." Dispatch came back confused. They said, "Copy, Miller. Say again. You said cell 13? That sector is cleared out. Maintenance gutted it last week." "I'm looking right at him, Control," I said. "Send the team." I kept my flashlight trained on him. I didn't blink. I knew if I looked away, he might rush the bars. I waited. It felt like hours, but it was probably only 2 minutes before I heard the boots of the response team thundering down the stairs. Sergeant Kowalski and 2 other officers came running up. Kowalski looked at me, then looked into the cell. He frowned. "Miller, what are you talking about?" I turned back to the cell. "He's right." My throat closed up. The cell was empty. There was no one on the bunk. No one in the corner, just bare concrete and dust. Kowalski looked at me like I was drunk. "You need some sleep, Miller. There's nobody here." They laughed. They turned around and started walking back to the exit, joking about the rookie seeing shadows. But I didn't leave. I unlocked the gate. I had to know. I walked into cell 13. The air inside was freezing. Not just cold, it felt like stepping into a freezer. I walked over to the metal bunk. There was no mattress, just the steel frame. I shined my light on the steel. In the thick layer of dust covering the bunk, there were marks, fresh ones. The dust had been disturbed, swirled around, exactly in the shape of a man sitting on the edge. And then I touched the steel. In a room that was 40 degrees, the metal spot where the man had been sitting was warm. It was hot to the touch, like someone had been sitting there for hours. I backed out of that cell. I locked it, and I never walked past cell 13 alone ever again. You can tell me I was tired, you can tell me I was hallucinating, but steel doesn't hold heat in a freezing basement. I know what I saw, and I know he was waiting for me to open that door. They tell you that solitary confinement is for your own protection. Don't believe it. It's designed to break you. I did 5 years at state for a robbery gone wrong. In 2012, I got into a fight in the chow hall, and the bulls threw me in the hole. ADSEG, 30 days. The cell is 6 by 8, solid steel door, no window, just a food slot. When that door slams shut, the silence is so heavy it hurts your ears. You start counting the bricks just to keep your sanity. 1, 2, 3. Start over. 1, 2, 3. By day 10, the loneliness starts to eat at you. You start hearing things. It started on the second week. I was lying on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, when I heard it, a tapping sound coming from the wall to my left. I sat up. I figured it was the guy in the next cell. In prison, we call it the telegraph. You tap on the pipes or the walls to talk. So I grabbed my plastic spoon and I tapped back. Pause. Then from the other side. I smiled. It was the first human interaction I'd had in weeks. I put my ear to the concrete. "Yo," I whispered, "who's over there?" No answer, just the tapping. It got faster, more rhythmic. It didn't sound like a spoon anymore. It sounded sharper, like a fingernail scratching on stone. The next day, the CO came by to drop off my tray. I asked him, "Hey, who's the guy in the next cell? He keeps keeping me up all night." The CO looked at me weird. He laughed. "Jackson, you're losing it. The whole wing is empty. We had a pipe burst in the next cell block. It's flooded. Nobody's been in there for a month." My blood ran cold. "No," I said. "I heard him. He tapped back." The CO just slammed the food slot shut. "Eat your slop, Jackson." That night, the tapping came back, but this time it was angry. It shook the dust off my ceiling. I backed into the corner. "Stop it," I yelled. "There's nobody there." Then I saw it. In the middle of the solid concrete wall, a dark spot appeared. It looked like oil. It was oozing out of the stone, dripping down onto the floor. It smelled like sulfur and old meat. I watched, frozen, as the black spot grew wider, and then the concrete stretched like it was made of rubber. A hand, a human-shaped hand coated in that black tar, pushed through the solid wall. It reached out, groping blindly in the air, fingers twitching. It wasn't reaching for help. It was feeling around, looking for me. I screamed. I started kicking the steel door. "Guard! Guard! Open the door!" The hand stretched further, followed by a wrist, then an arm. It was too long, too many joints. When the guards finally opened the door, they found me curled up in the corner, sobbing. They beat me for making a disturbance. They told me I cut myself. But I know what happened. When they dragged me out, I looked back at that wall. The concrete was solid, no cracks, no hole. But right in the center, there was a black, oily handprint stain, and it was still wet. You never forget the smell of the infirmary at 3 a.m. It's a mix of rubbing alcohol, cheap floor wax, and something else. Something old. Something rotting. I was a nurse at the St. Jude's prison ward for 5 years. I treated murderers, rapists, gang leaders. None of them scared me. I had a job to do.
But patient 42, he scared me. He was a lifer on death row for killing 3 families in the 90s. By the time he came to my ward, he was dying of liver failure. He was handcuffed to the bed, frail, yellow-skinned. He couldn't even lift his head. But his eyes, they were always watching the corner of the room. It was my 3rd night monitoring him. The ward was empty except for him. Just rows of empty beds with white sheets. I was at the nurse's station charting when I heard him whispering, "Tell him to wait. Please, tell him I'm not ready." I walked over to his bed. "Who are you talking to, John?" He didn't look at me. His eyes were locked on the dark corner of the room near the ceiling. "The collector," he wheezed. "The tall man. He's standing right there." I looked at the corner. Nothing. Just shadows. "It's just the medication, John," I said, checking his IV. "There's nobody there." "He's got a bag," John whispered, tears rolling down his face. "He's got a bag full of teeth. He says he needs mine." A chill went down my spine. I checked his vitals. His heart rate was spiking, 120, 130. He was terrified. "Make him go away!" John suddenly screamed, thrashing against the handcuffs. "Don't let him touch me!" And then the temperature in the room dropped. I saw my breath mist in the air. The lights overhead flickered and buzzed violently. John let out one final choking gasp, and then silence. He was gone. I stood there shaking, waiting for the code team. I reached up to close his eyes, and that's when I heard it. I froze. The sound wasn't coming from John's machine. I looked over. The heart monitor on the empty bed next to him had turned on. It was reading a heart rate. 70 beats per minute. Calm, steady. I looked at the empty mattress. The sheet depressed slightly, as if someone, or something heavy, had just sat down to rest. Then the monitor went black. I transferred out of the prison ward the next week. I couldn't handle the night shift anymore, because I realized something that night. Prisons keep people in, but they don't keep things out.
We weren't supposed to be down there. That was our first mistake. I worked maintenance at a maximum security facility in Ohio. Underneath the prison, there's a maze of steam tunnels that run for miles. They carry the heat, the water, the power. Most of them were built in the 1930s and haven't been touched since. Last winter, a main pipe burst in Sector 5. The warden told me and my partner Gary to go down and fix the valve. We grabbed our tool bags and flashlights. The map said the shutoff valve was behind a maintenance hatch in Tunnel B. We went down. It was tight, claustrophobic. The air was thick with dust and asbestos. We had to crawl on our hands and knees through some parts. We found the hatch. It was rusted shut. Gary took a crowbar and pried it open. When the door popped open, a smell hit us. It didn't smell like sewage. It smelled like old earth, like a grave. We crawled through into a section of tunnel that wasn't on the map. The walls here were different, rough stone, not concrete. "Mike," Gary whispered, "look at this." He shined his light on the floor. Lying in the dirt was a pile of rags. I got closer. It wasn't rags. It was a uniform, an old one. The fabric was rotted, but I could still see the patch on the shoulder. It was a guard's uniform from the 50s. And inside the uniform were bones. "We need to leave," I said. "We need to report this." Gary nodded, turning around. But then we heard it. Skitter, skitter, skitter. It sounded like a dog running on wet pavement, but it was coming from above us. I slowly shined my flashlight up at the ceiling of the tunnel. It was lined with pipes and cables.
there, crouched between the pipes, was a thing. It was pale, naked, skinny like a skeleton with skin stretched too tight. It had human arms and legs, but they were twisted backward like a spider. It didn't have eyes, just smooth, pale skin where a face should be, and a mouth full of needle teeth that was smiling at us. "Run!" I screamed. Gary and I scrambled back through the hatch. I heard the thing drop from the ceiling behind us with a wet thud. We slammed the rusty hatch shut and spun the wheel just as something slammed into the other side. It banged against the metal, once, twice, and then it started scratching. We never told the warden about the creature. We just said we couldn't find the leak. They sealed off that tunnel with concrete a month later. But sometimes when I'm working in the basement, I can still hear scratching in the pipes. From Tower 4, the prison yard looks like a stage. I work the tower, high security. I sit 50 feet in the air with a rifle and a pair of high-powered binoculars. My job is simple: watch the fence line. If anything moves between the inner fence and the outer wall, I take the shot. It was the coldest winter on record. January, 2 a.m. The snow was falling so hard it looked like white static on a TV screen. The yard was illuminated by massive floodlights. It was bright as day down there, but dead silent. I was sipping my coffee, trying to stay warm, when I saw movement near the north wall. I grabbed my binoculars. There was a figure running across the snow, fast. I keyed my radio. Tower 4 to control. I have movement in Sector North, one individual approaching the outer wall. I tracked him with my rifle scope. That's when I noticed something wrong. The figure was running through the snow, but he wasn't leaving footprints. I squinted. The floodlights were hitting him directly, but he didn't cast a shadow. It was like a void, a black person-shaped hole in the world. "Halt!" I yelled over the PA system. "Get on the ground!" The figure didn't stop. It reached the base of the tower, my tower. It looked up. Through my scope, I saw its face. It didn't have one. No eyes, no nose, just a smooth black surface. And then it started to climb. It didn't use the ladder. It crawled up the smooth concrete pillar of the tower like an insect. It was moving impossibly fast. "Control!" I screamed over the PA system. "It's climbing the tower! I need backup!" Dispatch replied, "Tower 4, we have no visuals. The cameras show the yard is empty. You're clear." "I am not clear! It's coming up!" I heard it reach the catwalk outside my glass booth. I locked the door. I aimed my rifle at the glass. My hands were shaking. I saw a hand slap against the window, a black, smoky hand. Then another. It pressed its faceless head against the reinforced glass. I could hear it screeching, a sound like grinding metal. I pulled the trigger. The glass shattered. The wind howled into the booth, but there was nothing there. No body, no blood, just the swirling snow and the darkness below. I was suspended for a week pending a psych evaluation. They said I had cabin fever. They said the isolation of the tower got to me, but I know what I saw. And sometimes, when I look up at the tower at night, I see it up there, watching me, waiting for me to come back on shift.
The worst part about these stories isn't that they happened, it's that they are still happening. Right now, somewhere in a cell in Ohio or Texas, a guard is walking past a dark corner and he's pretending he didn't see what just moved. Stay safe out there and try not to look under the bed tonight.